In December 2024, Oxford University Press did something strange. They took a phrase people used to say as a joke, brain rot, and made it their word of the year. Not because it was funny, because it was measurable. Neuroscientists can now show you what brain rot looks like in behavior and brain response. And it's not just wrecking your attention span, it's rewiring how you learn and how you talk to other human beings. Today, we're going past the meme and into the actual mechanism. What brain rot actually means. Quick definition, because the term gets thrown around loosely. Oxford defines it as the supposed deterioration of a person's mental or intellectual state, especially from overconsumption of trivial or unchallenging online content. Notice the word supposed. Even the dictionary is hedging. So let's stop hedging and look at what's actually happening in your brain. The neuroscience. 3 things are happening at once when you scroll. First, variable reward. Every swipe might deliver something boring, something hilarious, or something enraging. Your brain can't predict which, and unpredictable rewards trigger far more dopamine release than predictable ones. This is the exact mechanism slot machines are built on. Short-form platforms didn't invent it, they just automated it and put it in your pocket. Second, baseline shift. Stanford psychiatrist Anna Lembke, who studies compulsive behavior, describes dopamine like a seesaw. Every hit of stimulation is followed by an equal dip below baseline, your brain trying to stay balanced. Do this hundreds of times a day and your baseline drops. Ordinary things, a conversation, a book, silence, stop registering as rewarding because your dopamine system has recalibrated to expect constant novelty. Third, attention span itself is shrinking, and there's data on it. Researcher Gloria Mark at UC Irvine has tracked screen attention for over a decade. Her tracking shows the average focused attention window on a single screen task has dropped sharply since the mid-2000s. That's not a personality flaw. That's a trained response, trained the same way any habit is trained, except this training was run by an algorithm optimizing for your attention, not your focus. Disrupting online education. Here's where it stops being abstract. Online education runs on exactly the resource brain rot depletes: sustained attention. There's a concept in cognitive psychology called attention residue, from researcher Sophie Leroy. When you switch from one task to another, say a lecture video to a notification, part of your attention stays stuck on the thing you left. It doesn't fully transfer. So a student toggling between a course video and their phone isn't just losing the seconds spent on the phone. They're losing comprehension on both sides of the switch. Stack that hundreds of times across a school day, and you get a specific outcome: shallower processing. Information gets encountered, not encoded. You recognize it later. Yeah, I've seen that. But can't reconstruct it, because it never got the sustained attention required to move from short-term to long-term memory. That's why so many people say they watched an entire course and remember almost none of it. Disrupting social skills. Now the part people talk about even less: what this does to how you relate to other humans. MIT sociologist Sherry Turkle has spent over a decade studying this and found something counterintuitive. It's not that people talk less, it's that the texture of conversation changes. Face-to-face conversation is slow. It has silences, hesitation, tone, the risk of being misread. Mediated conversation, texting, comments, DMs, lets you edit, delay, and control your image. The more time spent in that controlled mode, the less practiced people become at the messy, real-time version. Empathy and reading social cues are skills. Skills atrophy without use, the same way a muscle does. Psychologist Jean Twenge's research tracked this at a generational level and found something that looks like a paradox: more connected than any generation in history, and also lonelier by self-report. We covered part of this in our video on parasocial bonds. The relationships some people have with content creators feel emotionally real, but they're one-directional. They can't teach you the back and forth of actual relationship building because there's no back, only forth. 4 remedies. So what actually works? Not delete every app. That's not realistic, and it doesn't address the mechanism. 4 things that do, each backed by research. 1. Reduce friction. Don't rely on willpower. Georgetown professor Cal Newport's research on focus shows that people who succeed at reducing compulsive use don't do it through discipline. They make the behavior physically harder. Grayscale screens, apps accessed only through a browser, phone in another room during work blocks. Willpower is a finite resource. Friction doesn't get tie. 2. Practice monotasking on purpose. Pick one 25 to 45-minute block a day for a single task, no switching. This isn't about productivity, it's attention rehab, retraining the exact muscle attention residue research shows gets fragmented. 3. Get unscreened analog time daily. Environmental psychologists Rachel and Stephen Kaplan's attention restoration theory found that undirected attention, the kind you use looking at a landscape, walking without a podcast, sitting in silence, actually replenishes the same directed attention system that scrolling depletes. It's not a luxury, it's maintenance. 4. Schedule real conversation. Not as a vague goal. Put unscreened in-person time on the calendar, the same way you'd schedule a task. Turkle's research found the skill comes back with practice, the same way it degrades with disuse. None of this requires becoming a monk. It requires treating attention like the finite, trainable resource the neuroscience says it is. Recap. Brain rot isn't a character flaw, and it isn't permanent. It's your brain doing exactly what brains do, adapting to whatever environment you put it in, thousands of times a day. Change the environment, and the adaptation runs the other way too. Subscribe if you want more of the actual mechanism behind why your brain does what it does. See you in the next one.